Deb, your stream is live now, and now you can also make me a co-host. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Hello.
Hey, hi.
Hello.
Hey, Myrna, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Now, I have to ask you, ladies, Myrna, were you in this class before?
No.
Okay, good. I'm getting I get a little concerned because I do see a lot of the same faces coming into my classes, which I absolutely love. And I know that I have some classes that I run quite a bit, and just like to check to see if you're coming back into a class with the same name, that it has the same content. So sounds like we're okay to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? And if it was the same thing and it was the same content, it would just reinforce what we learned once before.
That's it.
There we go.
All right. I feel better. Thank you. I see that Todd's saying hi. He's here for technical support and teaching assistance. So he's going to be checking the chat for me. Hi, Kathy. This is one of my favorite classes, actually.
Good.
Yeah, because
Because everybody loves dessert.
Yeah, well, that, and because there's so many things you can do to make your desserts better for you.
Good. Then I can put away my Lorna Doones.
Hey, was anyone in my quinoa class?
I
No,
wasn't.
but that was
just had
sounded
one
interesting.
You know, I have another healthy dessert in there, and I felt actually very good about sitting up here and having it in between sessions today. So I'll share that with you. If you come to that class, I'll share that dessert recipe with you too.
I'll be there.
If they're healthy, will they make us feel better about eating?
Yeah. And sometimes you do have to change you have to be, oh, you're talking and I can't hear you because you're muted, Laura.
Laura.
You're muted, Laura. I think she's trying to get herself.
Oh, okay.
So, Kathy, are you there? Can you hear me? Are you?
There we go. Yes, it's an iPad, and I knocked it out of its little case, and so it gets all upset and doesn't know what I want, and and I'm getting all kinds of signs. Okay, no, I was just going to say, I love white wine, and I mix up raspberries and strawberries and throw it in with the wine and make like a slushy of it. And then I can calculate how much I want and how much fruit. And I said to somebody who was doing this, and they said, "Oh, that sounds weird." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "The more I drink, the healthier I get now."
Now that Now that is a strategy. I like that. I'm going to use that one. So that sounds really good. We talk about agua frescas in the Mexican fiesta class. And so that sounds like a good pairing.
A good line, but we can use it for the dessert too. When you're putting the dessert on the table, the more
Sure.
you eat, the healthier you get.
The more exactly. Yeah, these desserts are going to be that way. So I'm excited about it. And we're going to go ahead and get started. There may be some other folks joining us. We're a little light here. There were a lot more people signed up, but I think that the weather's getting nice. And so perhaps that is affecting some of the attendance a little bit. So let me share my screen. And there you should see my healthy dessert slide. You see that?
Yum.
All right. Let's get started.
Must be cornbread.
Oh, that's not cornbread. That's that's a lemon cake. So yogurt lemon cake. So
Ooh.
you know me, and I think Kathy, I think I recognize your name. I think you know me as well. So I'm here in Pennsylvania, a guide here in Pennsylvania, and I've been with Get Set Up since almost the very beginning. Last year I started teaching teachers how to use Google Classrooms, and now here I am talking about cooking. So that Get Set Up is the environment where here comes Carolyn. Carolyn's joining us. Hi, Carolyn. Good to see you again, or kind of see you. And we are a community that likes to learn together. So being on camera is great. So if any of you who are not on camera would like to join by camera, that would be wonderful. You can request a recording at help@getsetup.io after this class, as usual. And I want to say hi to the people who are out there on live stream. It's nice to have you here today, too. And if you'd like, you can join our classes and be part of the conversation, because we do like to have our dialogue in these classes to share ideas, questions, recipes, and so on. Get Set Up, as you probably already know, is not getting any kind of financial compensation for anything that we talk about or share with you. We just know that it's something, or think that it's something that you would like to know about. So I share a lot of websites, and I know they sell their own products, but I don't know much about that. I just know I like their recipes. And today we are going to talk about what exactly makes a dessert unhealthy. And I'm going to ask you that question, because everybody comes to these classes with a slightly different motivation, or they're thinking, oh, I should do more of this or less of that, or I've got to get rid of this in my diet. So I want to know what that is. And then I'll give you a little bit of a dietary guideline overview. If you've taken my Healthy Meals on a Budget class, we get into this a bit. But I'm not going far into it. I'm only going to talk about it from a dessert perspective. And then that is going to give us a springboard into talking about how to make desserts actually healthier by operating on the things that we learn in those dietary guidelines. And then I have a recipe review. We will get through as many of those recipes as we can. I always put more in than I think I'm going to be able to accomplish. So anything that I don't get covered today in the recipes, as usual, of course, you're going to get as a matter of course when you get the email after the class. So you'll get all the recipes at that time, and you can try them out for yourself. I'll be really interested to hear what you try. I've had a number of people come back to another class and say, hey, I tried that, whatever it was, and I really liked it. So I hope you'll find some that you'll like too. And I'll just give Claire a moment to come on board here, and then we'll move forward. Claire and Sherry, we've got some folks joining us. Hello, Claire. It's nice to have you. Hi, Sherry.
I'm sorry I'm late.
It's okay. We're just about to get started. Thank you for joining us on camera. I like that. That's really nice.
If I don't, I'm usually eating or I look terrible. And I probably look terrible today, but I don't care.
You do not look terrible. And I love those balloons in the background too. So it just makes everything look bright and cheery.
I was like, what balloons?
What balloons? I forgot I had that virtual background. Okay, so as I was just saying to the ladies, what is it that makes a dessert unhealthy? In other words, what makes it unhealthy for you? What are you trying to eliminate? What are you trying to reduce, etc.? Tell me about it.
Sugar, fats.
That's a big one. And that's probably the one I'm most excited about talking about today, because there are some ways to do that. What else? Laura, you can unmute yourself.
I love desserts, although I don't eat, an excess of them. Let's put it that way. But what makes them so unhealthy is they taste so good. You want to consume so much of it, and it doesn't really add a lot of vitamins and nutrition to the body. That's what makes them unhealthy. If they didn't taste good, we probably wouldn't have the problem.
Yes, well, that's nature's way of getting us to eat more of something, except somewhere along the line, something went a little crazy, right?
Right.
Well, sugars do give us energy. And I guess back in the day when we were needing that energy, much more so than we need it now, it was a way for us to get quick energy if we were hunting and gathering for berries and things. So they tasted good and we ate them and we got instant energy. So
but there's different from fructose and glucose, and there fruit sugars, and at least you have the fiber and all that with the fruit, but if you just the white sugar is different.
Yes, exactly. So that's a very good distinction and a good point. So we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into sugars. And so you've mentioned many of the things I have on my list. Too many calories. So that equates to what Laura just said. We just eat too much of it. And so we tend to have too many servings or too large a serving size. Right. And in this country, everything's supersized. Wendy's led the way, didn't they? But I like to ask people in this class, what if they know what a serving size is for ice cream?
A half a cup.
A half a cup. And when was the last time you went to an ice cream parlor and got a half a cup? You probably
if they give us a half cup, we're not going back.
Exactly.
And they know that.
And don't you hate to think about what we actually do get? Would you like to guesstimate?
What? When we get 2.5 cups?
Yeah, I mean, it could be depends on the size, but I bet a small is probably at least a cup, maybe a cup and a half. And then you go from there up to whatever. And those sundaes, don't even get me started on banana splits, okay?
They have this little sundaes like at the grocery store. It's one serving.
Yeah.
They look innocent, right? So I was looking at them. I said, well, maybe I can get one and throw in the freezer. 500 calories to start.
Oh,
wow.
That's
for the non-starter. Well, you could have that instead of a meal.
No.
But I did hear somebody speaking, a doctor speaking recently, and he talked about how, about which foods are the worst for us. And he talks about sugars and he talks about fats. And he said the very worst of all is cold sweet fats. So
that's ice cream.
That's ice cream. And he was referring to that cold sweet fats and whatever else is cold, sweet, and fat, but sweet, milk. But fat and sugar together is bad.
Oh,
so ice cream is not one of our better desserts.
And milk is has sugar, but lactose.
It does have some sugars in it. Yeah. Now those aren't added sugars. They are inherent in the milk. So it's not terrible. And that's kind of what you were talking about earlier, Sherry. Different sugars are different things and have different qualities about them that can be not as bad, but granulated sugar, not good. And that's too much sugar. And what we know is that too much sugar can lead to, of course, diabetes and inflammation, which is really at the root of a lot of chronic systemic diseases, inflammation within our body. And that isn't inflammation that we can necessarily feel the way we feel a cut or an earache or something like that. It's just kind of quietly happening, but it's causing all these other things. So sugar can create and exacerbate inflammation. And then there's too much fat, of course. So what kind of fat do we have in ice cream?
Saturated fat.
Saturated fat. And saturated fat comes primarily from what source?
Cow.
It comes from the milk.
Milk. Saturated fat comes from milk in ice cream case, and it comes from animals in general. So
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And it can come from coconuts and also avocados, but minimal amounts. And it's appearing that not all saturated fats are equal either. So saturated fat is something that we can have a little give and take on. And then the last thing I have on my list is too much refined white flour, which is what we buy off the shelf and we know as all-purpose flour. And both granulated sugar and all-purpose flour have no redeeming qualities when it comes to nutrition. They are empty calories, empty. Okay. So let's take a look at these dietary guidelines as they relate to dessert. The government issues these 5-year guidelines. Every 5 years, they put out this immense book. You can find that online. I always provide it as a link in my healthy meals class. And I'm just extracting a tiny little piece of a table here, referring to women 50 and older and men over 50 as well. This guideline says that we should be getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 calories a day, women. And it looks like we have all women on board here today, so I'm going to assume that is the case, and I'm not going to talk about men, but if there's a man lurking, I guess I should. There's men on live stream, perhaps. So for men, it's 2,000 calories per day. But what is equal for us both is that we should be getting approximately, well, less than 23 grams of saturated fat a day. Now, if we are eating healthily, eating lean meats and lean or low-fat kinds of products, we're probably able to have almost anything we want and still stay in under those 23 grams. That's a lot of grams of saturated fat. But fat is really kind of fatter. 9 calories are in a gram of fat compared to 4 calories in a gram of carbohydrates. So we should be thinking about getting 20 to 35% of our daily calories in fat. And that's a high percentage. That's like a third of our diet. It's not that it's not important. It is important for us to get fats, but have good fats. So we don't want any trans fats, 0 of those, but we want to get less than 23 grams of saturated fat. So that leaves for us to get fats that are healthier for us in the form of omega-3 fatty acids and in the form of omega-6 fatty acids, especially the omega-3s, because they're a little harder to come by. So I'm going to show you some intentional ways to improve the health of your desserts by not just reducing this, but increasing the good fats. That's going to be a real winner here for our desserts. And when it comes to carbohydrates, look at this. The guidelines say 45 to 65%. Now, you might ascribe to a different food lifestyle. There are low-carb food lifestyles out there, and quite honestly, I've been on those and I've been very successful. I am successful when I minimize my carbs. We don't need a lot of carbs to live, but everybody's body is different. So everybody ascribes to a different food lifestyle. What I can tell you that is true across the board is that we do not need a lot of refined carbohydrates. In fact, we don't need any at all. We need to have complex carbohydrates, not simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, for example, would be any kind of sugar and any kind of refined white flour, refined grain, where all that's being used is the ectosperm of the grain that has no nutritional value, not even fiber. So white bread, white flour, white sugar, these are all things that we should be minimizing, eliminating, replacing, what have you. And then still getting 45 to 65% from things that do give us a lot of fiber, that give us omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And they can be found in the form of fruits and vegetables and whole grains primarily, but also in some oils and some things like, well, avocado is a fruit, and the oils of olives and the oils of avocados is also a very good source. So I think already you're starting to see that there are foods we can replace in our existing dessert recipes that are going to make our desserts much healthier and still tasty. So I think I started to refer to this and then I held off knowing we were going to get to this. I talk about this in a couple of my classes. Added sugar is the sugar that is not in a piece of fruit like Sherry was talking about, along with the fiber that goes with that orange, but it is in what is added to our baked goods, our ice cream, our tea. Those additional calories should equate to no more than 25 grams or 6 teaspoons per day for a woman and 9 or 35 grams for a man. And as a kind of contrast to that, or a way to think about that, I also ask in my classes, how many teaspoons of sugar do you think is in a 20-ounce bottle of Coke? Anybody remember? I think some of you have been in that other class. Do you remember what I said?
12?
16.
16 is the answer. So when you look at 16 teaspoons in a Coke, and then you look at this number, wow. You know, what an impact you can have on your diet just by eliminating soda. And I don't know about you, but back when I was much younger and not as smart, because I didn't know all of these things, I drank a lot of soda. A lot of soda. So I drink no soda now. Every once in a while, I'll have a sip of something if we're on a road trip, but I don't even crave it anymore. It's actually become too sweet for me.
How bad is artificial sweetener?
It depends. Well, when you're talking about artificial sweetener, you're referring to, I just want to be clear, my definition of artificial sweetener would be things like Splenda, Sweet and Low, and NutraSweet. Is that your definition?
Yeah, I think so. I just use Diet Coke on when I go to McDonald's, but basically I've tried to avoid it too now.
Yeah, first of all, the ingredients in soda anyway are not that good, especially in Coke and Pepsi. I don't know if you've ever heard that Coke can clean a toilet very well.
Yes,
so
I have.
I think that anything that can clean a toilet very well, maybe I shouldn't be drinking. But the artificial sweeteners are, in a pinch, first of all, I would eliminate anything that uses NutraSweet. And a lot of diet sodas do that. I have read enough about that. Now, they will tell you otherwise, but there is research and there are studies that show that it has had a diminishing effect on it can affect your brain. It has some neurotoxicity going on there. So I did know somebody who was drinking things with that in all the time. And the person was older, and starting to become really a little not just forgetful, but seemingly having a little dementia. And he was putting that even in his wine. And when that was removed as a substance, his clarity returned. So just that's an anecdotal. So I would stay away from NutraSweet, Splenda, and Sweet and Low. They're one of those things. They are chemical. They are a processed thing, and they're not natural in any way. So my tendency is to underuse them. If it's all that I have when I'm out and I want an iced tea, I'll take a little bit of Splenda and put that in my iced tea with lemon. I don't use it very often. So my suggestion would be to minimize that and don't rely on it as something that makes it okay to drink diet soda like I used to do. I used to think that, okay, I was fine drinking the diet stuff. So I don't feel that way anymore. But I do have some other sugar.
Does Diet Coke have NutraSweet in it?
I haven't looked at that lately. I've looked at a lot of sodas. I'm thinking so, but well, you know what? Let me look that up for you real quickly here. I think I can do that.
Thank you.
And by the way, the generic term for that is aspartame.
Oh, okay.
And the drink contains, they've changed it. It has acesulfame, potassium, and sucralose. So sucralose is what is in Splenda now. And I'm not sure about this other ingredient that I can't pronounce, but let me look that up real quickly. It's up to 200 times sweeter than table sugar, but it has a sour reputation. It's a calorie-free sweetener found in sugar-free products. Is it bad for you? Let's see what it says. It's considered safe by the FDA. Some are convinced it has health side effects. So better safe than sorry approach when it comes to food additives with controversial backgrounds is what this article says. And I tend to go along with that. If it says that there's possibles there, I just tend to limit it. It's not that
limit it. Yeah.
a little bit of it here and there, but I think I have some other suggestions for you that might be
right. Like if you're at McDonald's, I can't drink tea because it affects my iron. But is there something else you can drink besides iced tea? And coffee I can't drink.
Mm-hmm.
Besides water.
Yeah, right. So are they, some places do herbal teas, which would be different. But other than that, I have taken my own packets of sweetener and squeezed lemon in and made my own lemonade. And a lot of times they'll have lemon at the bar, but I don't know what else you would maybe order. It depends on what they have on the menu, but that's what I do as a last ditch.
No, I was thinking fast food places like McDonald's, they won't have lemons. You have to bring your own.
Well, that's true. You'd have to bring your own. I can't say that fast food has anything that I would think has redeeming characteristics or redeeming products for that.
Right. It's just easy to eat outside now because of COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Everything's changed.
It sure has. So let's move on here and talk about what you can do to make those desserts healthier. And it's all around strategies for decreasing how much of a bad ingredient you use, or replacing it altogether, or even finding substitutes that you can replace the substance. I guess that is replace, but that you can use part of that substance in that ingredient as well as part of the bad ingredient. So we have some substitutions that can completely replace and still act like the original ingredient, especially in the area of sugar. So let's look at each one of those, starting with flour. The first thing that we can do to make desserts healthier, if they have flour in them, is to reduce the amount. And the good news is that whole grain flour has the nutritional value. It has the wheat bran and the germ in it, which has all the nutrients that we want to get from our grains. And it also has a lot of fiber. So we can increase the fiber content of our desserts and the vitamin content by using whole grain flour. So it could be oat flour, it could be wheat flour, rye in some desserts, maybe not so much. You can use, what other kinds of flours are you thinking about? You can use quinoa flour. These can all be substituted with usually not notice of change in the outcome of your product by about half. So if you went from a cup of all-purpose flour to a half cup and added a half cup of whole wheat flour, you would be improving the nutritional value of your dessert. And then if you wanted to, in some recipes, you can completely eliminate flour. Obviously not in that yogurt cake we saw in the beginning, that wouldn't work. But in something that is dense and fudgy and yummy, gooey kind of thing, we can substitute things like black beans or chickpeas or avocados instead of that flour. So we're going to talk about a dessert that uses avocados in brownies, and people have been super surprised at the outcome of that. In a good way. They've come back and said, well, I'm kind of addicted to those avocado brownies. So maybe you'll be like that too. And the good thing is avocados have fiber. They have 5 grams of fiber in 1/2 of an avocado. And I'll just say as a reminder that 25 grams of fiber per day is what we are striving for. They also have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. So again, we're improving the nutrition of that brownie by all of those things we just talked about. So fat is another thing that you can start to change up in your dessert recipes, remembering to more minimize the saturated, but keep the other fats up. So when it comes to lowering saturated fat, you can use those lower fat versions. So Myrna, you talked about saturated fat in whole milk. I wouldn't say use a skim milk because I think that skim milk doesn't, it's not, there's not much in it. It starts to become nutritionally deficient, but low fat, use a little low fat milk or 2%. You could use a Neuchâtel cheese, which is that 1/3 less fat cream cheese that you see at the store. And that tastes the same and is less calories, less fat grams. There's also something out there now called Greek yogurt cream cheese, and that is also lower in fat and higher in protein. So you can actually have an impact by increasing protein in some of your desserts by using Greek yogurt cream cheese. And then using as a substitute for butter or other kinds of oils, unhealthy oils, use avocado oil, olive oil, canola oils. In my book, okay, I haven't used that in a long time. I prefer to use these two. I also use coconut oil, and I really should add this to the list. I took it off because it does have saturated fat in it, but I since have changed my mind because it's really like avocado oil. It's a good saturated fat, and the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. So coconut oil, which is solid at room temperature, is another really good thing to use. And you can melt that in the microwave and use it as you would any kind of oil. And there are two things about coconut oil to know, or two types of coconut oil to know about. One is called refined coconut oil, and that's been one that's been put through a process, obviously, of being refined. And it comes out not having really much of a flavor at all. It's pretty tasteless. So if you don't want your product to taste coconutty, you would want the refined version. If you like the coconut flavor, then you can use the unrefined and you will get a coconut flavor, which I kind of like. I carry both. If I want to, very, very seldom do I do this, but occasionally I like to fry a piece of fish. I like to use the coconut oil, but I don't want my fish to taste like coconut. So I use the refined. But in my brownies, I like that coconut taste. So I use coconut oil in these avocado brownie or in the brownies that I make. And so that's another way to increase your health profile, keeping your fats up because it's okay to have some fats in there. And then the other way to lower fat is to replace some or even all of it, depending upon the recipe, with some kind of a fruit puree. Has anybody ever made muffins with applesauce? Anybody ever done that?
Nope.
Okay, or
Yes,
you
I
have.
have. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but it was recent.
Oh, it was recent. Okay.
Yes.
And did you like the outcome, whatever it was, if you remember?
Yeah, it was fine. It really didn't make that much difference. I used unsweetened applesauce, not the sweet one.
Yeah, exactly. So that's perfect. And I think that that's a testament. You don't even know the difference. So why put in there things that are going to have higher calories and possibly bad fats when you can replace it with something that's got more fiber and all the vitamins that go along with a fruit that you might use? And you can expand beyond applesauce. So you can try pureed prunes for some or all of the fat. You can sometimes do half and half the prunes, half the butter, whatever the case might be. I find myself experimenting. I also find myself Googling that if I want to do a particular recipe and I say, oh, I wonder if I can use a fruit puree in this, I might Google just that thing. Can I use applesauce in X recipe, whatever that might be, and see what comes up, because lots of people have done conversions already for you. But you can also experiment when you know that you can use half to almost the full replacement, and you'll see different ratios for that. So I'm not going to give you one specific ratio. Pureed prunes might work nicely in something like a chocolate dessert. Just think about the color and the taste of a prune and how that might work there. But then there's pumpkin. You can use pumpkin, avocado again, and mashed banana, all as substitutes for fat in a dessert. Typically a baked dessert. Now let's get in. Well, let me stop and say, are there questions about this so far? Questions, comments, thoughts, examples. The other thing I would add to this, I don't think it's really much of a, I don't know that it's much of a replacement, but I certainly use a lot of shredded zucchini in my baked goods. And it's much like using the applesauce or any of these purees. So yeah, you can probably cut down on the fat in that respect too. So let's get into sugar. Let's talk about that. The very first thing that I would say about sugar is that you could try a sweet hiatus for a little bit. This is something outside of the cooking realm, but something you might give a shot if you're trying to really break your sugar habit. And I can attest to this because I did it. I took myself off anything sweet for about 2 weeks. It was not, I mean, it was hard. I really would like to eat something a little bit sweet. I started to crave it, but of course that's the sugar addiction, and I got through it. And when I did come back then and eat something sweeter, I did some taste testing, and my taste buds had changed a bit. And I found that those things were more sweet than I needed them to be. So I'm ruined now, because when I am out anywhere and I order something that is on the menu somewhere, whether it's a coffee drink or a dessert, it kind of puts my teeth on edge because it's just too sweet. So I'm now able to make most of my desserts and have my coffee drinks with 1/3 to even 1/2 less the sugar that I would have normally eaten before. So you might want to just give that a try, see if it works for you. It can't do anything but help. And then if you can't, or when you want to use sugar, I would say that granulated sugar is probably the worst thing that you can pick, because it does get absorbed very quickly and it gets broken down very quickly by our bodies. Our pancreas elicits or secretes insulin automatically when sugar hits our system. And that's why we get those sugar spikes. And that's why we over time become type 2 diabetic, too much refined carbohydrates. So can you use natural sugars instead? Yeah, some of them are more or less sweet than table sugar. But the point of that, and they do also carry with them certain nutritional properties. Honey, especially non-pasteurized or raw honey, will bring with it some properties that are healthful. I've learned or heard that if you have it from your local area, it can help you with allergens from your area. And maple syrup, blackstrap molasses, they do have some nutritional properties. But the bottom line here is that sugar is sugar, and it still spikes your sugar levels when you digest it, okay? It's not going to digest slowly, it's going to digest rapidly. So be aware. And if you must use sugar, and I do, I use sugar here and there, I end up substituting some of it out for other things, and using less, and maybe trying to incorporate more natural sugars. And then you can try erythritol or xylitol. These sound like chemicals. They are not. They are actually a type of sugar that you can, they're a precursor, they're a sugar alcohol. So they're not recognized by our bodies as sugar. And so they don't add calories and they don't spike our blood sugar. And this is one that I like particularly. They do taste like sugar. They do taste a little, xylitol has a cold taste on the tongue if you eat it raw. When it's incorporated into baked goods, I think that you'll have a hard time telling the difference. And many of them are blended with stevia, which is an herb. Has anybody ever used stevia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you use it, Verna?
I put it in my coffee,
Yeah.
and I'm not really fond of it.
Okay. So tell me about what it is, what you think about it.
It's not sweet. I have to put too many drops in,
Mm.
and then it ends up with a little aftertaste.
A little bit bitter.
Not exactly bitter, but just an undesirable aftertaste.
Yeah. And that's apparent more to some people than to others. And sometimes it comes as a bitter taste, which is why it's good. Well, first of all, you shouldn't have to put so many drops in. So different brands are different, but it's so many, like several times sweeter than sugar. So theoretically, you should only need a tiny bit. And so it depends on that blend and how it's formulated as well. But what I found about it too is that it's a little bit bitter. I have it raw. I've grown it. It's green, and I've powdered it in my coffee grinder, and I can use that in my tea. And it's fine, but it doesn't dissolve like the processed kind does. So I don't use it for baking or anything like that. And a little bit goes a long way, but it does have a little of that aftertaste. So mixing it and whatever they do in processing it with erythritol can really help mitigate that. And it's, well, I'll show you the blends. And then the last kind of sugar replacement, I would say, is monk fruit sweetener. And this is actually monk fruit, the fruit of the monk fruit. And it's got a sugar in it, but it's not a sugar that our body recognizes as sugar. So again, it's low calorie or no calorie, and it doesn't spike our blood sugar because it doesn't get absorbed. So has anyone tried monk fruit? Let's see if you recognize some of these on the grocery shelf. Here's one called Swerve, and it is a blend of the erythritol, the sugar alcohol, and something called oligosaccharides, which just sounds very complicated and chemical, but is actually an ingredient. It's a raw ingredient that's found in food, like beans. There's oligosaccharides in beans. So they extract from food this ingredient, and they've made this sugar substitute or replacement. And then this monk fruit sweetener is also, it's blended with erythritol. So erythritol has some really good characteristics that make it a nice blend with other things. And it can be purchased in a golden form, like almost like a sugar in the raw, or in a classic white granulated sugar form. And you can use these as a replacement with the same amounts of granulated sugar, although I tend to use less because I think it's very sweet. So you might want to check that out for your own. Start with less than what the recipe calls for and taste. That's the best advice that I can give for that, for you for that. And then this last one is the one I've been using most recently because I found it on sale at the grocery outlet for $3.99 a bag. It's erythritol and stevia, and it comes in an organic and non-organic version, a white and a confectioner style. So these are all things now that you can use. And I would say to Claire, if you wanted to sweeten your drink, these would be great substitutes. Great ways to sweeten a drink. They're not necessarily a drink at the fast food places. They're not going to have anything except water.
Is that an organic stamp on those?
Yes, this one has an organic version. So non-organic and organic. Yep.
Cool.
Is that as good as Splendor?
Oh, I like it better. I like it.
Okay.
Well, I like it better because of what it is made up of. I know they're processed, so it's not perfect, but I like it
Right.
for what it does provide. So I'm going to take a look here at the time. It's 3:42. Let's make our way through these desserts. But let me first ask you, because I know that's something to start with. What's your favorite type of dessert?
My favorite dessert?
Yeah.
Brownies.
Okay, brownies. So we want to hit brownies. Who else?
Pound cake.
Pound cake. So we want to try that yogurt cake. It's not exactly a yogurt or a pound, but it's a good substitute.
Pumpkin cheesecake sounds good too.
Okay, let's hit those three for right now and see where we are from that point. We'll start here with the pumpkin cheesecake since we're right here. I love this recipe. If you notice those little glasses, these were ones that I made up. So I made these as a dessert, had these little glasses that were in a little carrying case that I recycled from Costco. It had its own little desserts in it. And I made a crust on the bottom. Well, we'll see. But this is the outcome. And I took it to a friend's house with the container of whipped cream with me, served it as for dinner afterward, and got rave reviews on it. I've now served it several times, and it is refreshing. It tastes like cheesecake. It's healthy, and it doesn't make you feel stuffed like the cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. Now, is it the cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory? No, but it's a pretty good substitute. And it doesn't mean you can't sometimes have that cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. Okay, so let's take a look at the recipe. Here's the other thing I love about this. It is so easy to make. I made that crust out of four sheets of graham crackers and 1/3 cup of pecans and a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. I put it in my little baby food processor, whirled it up, and it was ready. And I put that in the bottom of those glasses. I left a little bit out because I wanted to sprinkle some on top of the whipped cream. And then just mix the other ones.
What if you don't have a food processor?
Oh, do you have a blender?
No.
Let's see. What do you have that you chop or grind things with? Anything?
A rolling pin.
A rolling pin.
Put it in a Ziploc bag and use a rolling pin.
That would work.
Crackers.
That would work very well.
Okay.
So you just grind those up and do that. And then this filling is using fat-free or reduced fat cream cheese, or that yogurt cream cheese that I talked about. Non-fat plain Greek yogurt. So what's not to like there? Pumpkin puree, like the kind you get out of the can. And pumpkin pie spice. This is underlined because if you click on it, you can find a recipe to make your own, or you can buy pumpkin pie spice, or you can just simply use the flavors that you like. If you don't like if you don't like nutmeg, you can just use cinnamon and ginger, or if you don't like ginger, just use nutmeg and cinnamon. So a little bit of pumpkin pie spice, a little bit of vanilla, and 6 tablespoons of maple syrup. So we are using maple syrup here, and I think it does add to the flavor of this recipe. But this is also serving, I believe it is 8 servings. Let me take a quick look here. Yeah, 8 servings for this recipe. So it's not a lot of sugar over all those recipes. And yeah, you just mix that up, put it in the refrigerator, let it set up a little bit. And in about 30 minutes, you're ready to put those in the glasses, divide it evenly across the glasses. And then if you're serving it immediately, can put the whipped cream on, sprinkle it with the crumbs and serve. Or you can just put them in the refrigerator the way they are, cover them. And when you're ready to serve, just take your can of whipped cream with you, which is what I did, or have it at your house. Just put it on. It looks very fresh, and you can serve it. And look at this. Only 214 calories. How awesome is that? And it has 16.3 grams of sugar. So it's well within our daily added sugar allotment, which is again, well, we said it was 6 teaspoons or 25 grams of added sugar. So this falls under that. Gives us some nice protein. It even gives us 2.4 grams of fiber, and the saturated fat is only 2.9 grams. So I think this qualifies as a very healthy dessert. And what I like about it additionally is that it's a recipe I think you could really modify if you played around with it a little bit by putting maybe a lemon curd in there. Now it's going to change up your calorie profile there. And I don't know what that would be, but if you put lemon curd in there, something lower calorie would be to do a strawberry puree. And you could do the strawberries in there, make it for spring, make a spring strawberry cheesecake. So you can experiment with this one and probably get some really fine flavors. Berries, I think, would really keep the calories down. So what do you think about that recipe?
Looks delicious and
Love
these,
it.
So easy. It checks off all my boxes. Here's another thing, looking at the calories on that. Now, I know it doesn't compare, but just think about this. The Cheesecake Factory original cheesecake has 830 calories.
Piece or for the whole cake?
Yeah, for a piece.
your price.
You say wishfully. 37 grams of saturated fat. Let me repeat that. 37 grams of saturated fat. 157 carbs, which is actually 51 grams of sugar. So you're doing yourself a favor with the cheesecake in a glass. And let's take a look at this healthy yogurt cake, which would be a little bit of a replacement for a pound cake. And I like the way the sugar calories get used here. This doesn't cure all ills. We're using white flour in this, and I probably would not change that out because of the nature of the texture there in that cake. You want the light texture. I think I'd be a little worried about putting in another flour, but you know, it wouldn't hurt to try. So you could start with maybe a quarter cup and just see what happens, but I'd make it this way first and then experiment. So it's using plain yogurt. So that's a really nice start to have yogurt in the recipe. And then 2 level cups of all-purpose flour or light spelt flour. And so she mixed both of those. And then a half cup of white or unrefined cane sugar. Now, if I was making this, I would lower the calories more by using better than sugar. I would just use that instead. And then a half cup, scant cup of oil. She used canola oil. I'd probably use avocado oil here or coconut oil. 2 eggs, baking powder, vanilla, lemon zest. So that's what goes into this cake. And then this cake has a little light glaze, fruit glaze on top of it. So to make that, all you do is melt like 3 tablespoons of a jam that would go well. So apricot and orange are suggested. Use what you like. And you just put that on the stove and let it melt. You're not cooking it or bubbling it or anything. You just want it to melt so that you can then spread it. And you probably won't even use all of it when you spread it over that entire cake. And it just gives that nice extra flavor without a whole lot of extra calories. And the way to make that, you're making it in a loaf pan, preheat your oven at 350, and you make it like any cake you would make, which is to mix your eggs and your sugar, beat them up, and then add the oil, the lemon zest, the vanilla, keep mixing it. Then put the yogurt in there and mix all of that until it's smooth. And then in a separate bowl, whisk together the flour, the baking powder, and the salt, and then incorporate it into your wet batter and then put it into your loaf pan, which you have greased or covered with cooking spray. You can also line it with parchment paper if you want, and then just lift it right out. Or if you have one of those silicone baking loaf pans, it will come out easily there too. And then it just bakes for 35 to 40 minutes, and that's it. And that at that point is when you want to, after you let it cool a bit, put that glaze on. Don't put it on while it's too hot or it'll maybe just run off. So yeah, brush it right when it's cooled down a little bit. So how does that one sound, Myrna? Have you been in class with Grisha by any chance? Do you remember Grisha?
No, I haven't.
She's somebody who has made this cake, and she's really enjoyed it.
It was delicious. Okay.
Yeah, she loved it.
Are there eggs in there?
There was an egg. Yes, I think so.
One.
Let me go back. Now what happened to my recipe? 2 eggs.
Okay.
2 eggs.
Do you have recipes for like 1 or 2 people, you know, not such a large amount?
Yeah. You know, a lot of recipes you can certainly divide the recipe just in half and make it that way. But you bring up a good point that we're working on, or I'm working on. I'd like to connect with somebody who's focused on meals for one.
Right, that'd be great.
So I am working on that. I'm not quite sure. I have to connect with the right person, but it's on my list. Thanks for asking about that and letting me know. How many others of you are really into cooking for one? Think that would be something you'd be interested in? I see Claire and Myrna, you're saying that, right?
Yeah.
And I see that up there. Yep, 3 of you. 3 of you?
Can I suggest though, if you're cooking for one, you just cook for 2 and have it twice?
Yeah, what do you think about that? Freezing things and having it again?
I prefer just for one basically, or possibly 2, but no, not large recipes.
And you're not really one that likes to freeze things.
No.
Yeah. Lots of times people don't have room in their freezers. I understand
Right.
that. And that can be a problem. But Laura, I tend to be in your camp, so it's different for me to think about cooking in smaller quantities, which is why I want to get some help in this regard and see if we can't find somebody to give us some good tips and tricks.
Yeah. And Deb, we're a family of 2, but I do freeze a lot.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
So yeah, different strokes, and we want to cover all of them. So I'm glad you asked about that. All right, so let's get to these brownies. And let's see where I am here. We're getting
Looks delicious.
They are so good, and they are so easy. They are one of the easiest desserts, right up there with that cheesecake. So you're using 1 ripe avocado. The most important thing is that you're using one that is either 7 ounces or measures out to a 1/2 cup. It's important that you get that measurement because avocados are all different sizes, right? And you're using a 1/2 cup of cacao powder or cocoa powder. It doesn't matter which. 2 eggs. This calls for a cup of coconut sugar. Again, I would use 50-50 with a sugar substitute or all sugar substitute. You can try it and modify as you would like, as you want to experiment. There's a 1/4 cup of almond butter in here. This is a way to add fat without adding some kind of butter or oil that we wouldn't want. It's a way to get the omega-3s in there by adding a nut butter. It says almond butter. You could add peanut butter. You could add cashew butter. Then baking powder, vanilla, fine sea salt, and some dark chocolate chips. And what you do is take an 8x8 or a 9x9 inch pan and line it with parchment paper. That's the easiest way to do this. Or I would use the parchment paper. I guess you could try greasing it, but the suggestion here I like to grease the pan first and then put the parchment paper down so that it stays weighted down. If you've ever put parchment paper in a pan, you know it's always popping up. So make these in a single bowl. The most important thing is, first of all, you don't want to over mix it, but on the other hand, you don't want to under mix it. You want to make sure that all the avocado gets smashed. So I do use something to make sure I get that. Again, I use my little food processor for it. If you don't have one, you need to use, I don't know if you have a pestle or something that you can really mash the avocado so that you can make this mix pretty smooth. And then fold in the chocolate chips and pour the batter into the pan. And you can put a few more chocolate chips on it and bake it for 45 minutes. And that's about it. You check it to make sure it's not jiggling when you pull it out and allow those brownies to really cool completely. There is a comment here that they may taste more like avocado if you eat them hot. So refrain from doing that. Let them cool for about 2 hours. And then slice them. You're going to see that this makes a rather small batch, but think about this. You're also looking at making serving sizes reasonable too. So this has a lot of super good ingredients in it, especially if you're substituting out the sugar. You are also reducing those bad empty calories. And you are getting fiber in exchange as well as good healthy fats. So I would be really interested to hear what you think about those.
Have you tried avocado ice cream? Because I know that exists now in the supermarket.
Have I had it?
Yeah.
I have not. I have not. Has anybody had it?
Nope.
That sounds very interesting. I'm thinking I have a little ice cream maker. I'm thinking I should try to make it one of these days. I bet it would be very good made with coconut milk too. So you could make a very healthy, healthy recipe that way.
Deb, will you have these recipes in your notes?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm getting to that. What's going to happen now is I will send you the notes. By the way, if you don't have my email address, make sure you have it. Send me your ideas, recipes, pictures, and I will send you the notes. My next class, I've got soup from scratch. Well, actually, I have Let's Talk Cooking tomorrow. I'm embarrassed I didn't update my slide, but Let's Talk Cooking tomorrow is happening, and on Friday is Mexican Fiesta. And I've started a class on seasonal ingredients. So this week, well, I'm doing these, continuing them, but asparagus, I'm working on asparagus. I'm doing asparagus next week, strawberries. You'll see Spotlight series happening there, as well as Heart Healthy Cooking. And yes, I'll get you those notes to you. The recipes will be on there either as links or as an attachment. And I'll send you some class ideas. You can view the schedule from here. Give me some feedback about the session, about me, about Get Set Up in general, and send the class on to a friend or invite a friend when you sign up for your next class. So we are happy to hear from you. Laura, I know we've been having some connections and I look forward. I hope you and I can have a short Zoom call or something. Would you be open to that we could just talk about some ideas? Can you take your...
I'd love to do that, and as long as I remember to take my mic off.
Okay, good. So I'll
Turn
send
it on.
I'll send you an email with some possible times and you can let me know.
Love it. Thanks, Deb.
Sure. And what Laura and I are talking about is that she said that she's interested in maybe helping out with some topics that she's very interested in. And that's just great. We bring more members of the community in. So if you have something like that, love to work with you too. You can send that to my email address. And these are all the things that you can get from Help It Get Set Up. So I'm going to stop my share. And thank you for coming, and also give you an opportunity to ask anything or make any further comments before we say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope
Thank you,
got
Deb.
good
Thank you.
strategies. You're very welcome. Try those desserts. I'm anxious to hear how you do.
Sounds good.
One day I will.
Okay. Yeah, I know. You can't. And it's getting to be summer and there's lots of things pulling on us, right? Yeah.
I'm an avocado fanatic, so I always buy 5 at a time, and so that's going to be my try.
There you go. Let me know. Laura,
I
that'll
will. Thank you, and ladies, have a good day. And
Thanks.
a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later, Deb.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Carolyn.
Okay.
Bye, Deb.
Bye, Todd. Bye, Sherry. Thanks for coming.
How do I do this?
You're trying to get off? You know what? I'll help you. I'm going to end the session, then you should be good.
Now I can say goodbye. You disappeared. I couldn't find the thing.
Oh, okay.
All right, have a good day.